Candace Parker, the figure, the measure, remembered. Annie Costabile as prepared to write about her as anyone we know. She gives us a sneak preview of her story coming this weekend, and we're going to talk about the current sky as well. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen every day. Over 200,000 of you showing up in April alone. Just an incredible community to be part of, showing up for us the way we show up for you 6 days a week. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, it's not just me, it is the incredible team over at thenexthoops.com, where we have over 100 reported pieces every month on women's basketball. 3.3 million readers in March alone. $9 a month, $72 a year continues the support for the coverage, thenexthoops.com. And I will tell you just flat out, when I read about the WNBA, I am always looking to Annie Costabile first, who writes at the Chicago Sun-Times. Leave aside that she is a delightful human being. She works harder than anyone I know. Annie, I'm so glad you're here because we have something important to talk about, which is the
Do we? What happened?
It's kind of under the radar, but the retirement of Candace Parker. We're going to talk about Candace and your chance to cover her in segment 1 and the legacy of it in segment 2. The Chicago Sky still fielding a team here in 2024. And what is that going to mean going forward? And in segment 3, the WNBA standard writ large. We're also excited about where the league is, where it's going. But what does that mean? Where do we see the league up to the challenge? Where do we see under construction signs where women's sports should have infrastructure? But let's begin with Candace Parker. And I guess just off the top, before we even get into the specifics of her legacy, the Los Angeles Sparks issued a wonderful statement of support about her on her retirement. She won a championship there. The Las Vegas Aces issued a wonderful statement about her career as well. She won a championship there. Chicago Sky, where she also won a championship. Take me through what their statement said.
There wasn't a statement. There was a beautiful social media post, which I think, shout out to all of these teams, content teams. I know from being a producer myself at one point in this business and being a shooter and editor at one point as well. Those videos are not easy. They're not quick turnarounds. And so when a news like retirement, you're unaware that it's coming. It's not like you have something prepared, ready to go. Maybe you should have, because again, we kind of all assumed Candace's retirement was coming at some point, whether this year or next. You could maybe have something planned in your back pocket. Either way, the social media posts from the Sky, from all the teams, they were beautiful to see, but no statement from ownership from the Sky. We did not see a statement.
Do you think those things resonate? And I ask that because you're in a market with the team where at times I know there have been concerns about the how and the why they do certain things. And, it can feel small or it can feel large. Do you think it resonates with other players who see that as well? Because I know, and we'll talk more about the players who are there, the legacy of Candace Parker is enormous.
This would just be pure speculation on my point. I love to ask those direct questions before I answer them directly, never, putting words in players' mouths. But I do think players are watching what franchises do. I think obviously it's the same way, we're employers, or we're employed by people, or at least I am. I know you are your own entity, but you care about what your employer does. You watch the moves that they make, because that's, who you're showing up for every day. So speculation. Yeah, I think players pay attention to that sort of thing, and it does resonate. I don't know how much energy they give it, because again, retirement, I think, is something that as an athlete, you're not thinking about every day. You actually don't want to think about. So I don't know that any player is like, oh, the Sky didn't issue a statement. I play for this team, and that's bothersome to me because one day I'm going to retire, and how will they handle it? But
Yeah.
I just think in a larger sense, yeah, players definitely pay attention to what these franchises are doing.
And clearly, the players were affected in your initial reporting about this already. I know you've shared some of it on social. Again, the Chicago Sun-Times will have a big takeout piece from you this weekend. I
Yeah.
cannot wait to read it.
Thanks.
But take me through just being there at the moments the players are kind of processing this news. And I just, to sort of give people a sense of this at the top. And I'm not going to insult the intelligence of our listeners by saying, oh, gee, do you know who Candace Parker is? But somebody who not only from 2008 on, goes and wins a national championship, goes
Yeah.
and is MVP and Rookie of the Year in
Wow.
year one, which is just an incredible thing. And more to the point, and I'm writing a little bit about this today over at the Nine, she changed the way people thought bigs could operate in a way that I think expedited that change in the way the league operates as well, simply because you had players growing up emulating
Yep.
Candace Parker, right? Watching and emulating, exactly. But so take me through some of the Sky players and who had kind of the biggest responses to this news.
Yeah. So I just have to say, I was cracking up when I not like laughing at this. It was shocking, right? But I
Yeah.
was cracking up in hindsight at the fact that like in this moment where all eyes are on training camp, Sky practice is just about to end. I'm so thankful I did log on to Instagram just minutes before Sky practice ended, and I saw it and I was like, I want to swear so bad right now, Howard, but I was like, no effing way. I'm like looking, I'm like, wait, as in right now? So when I saw Stewie's response as in effective immediately, that was literally my thought. I was like, as in effective immediately. So, as a journalist, your mind goes into like planning. You're like, okay, I got to get the breaking news story up. I got to get reaction from these players and then update the story. And then I got to like start reaching out to all my sources to get, the big story done.
Right.
So my thought was, even when Candace Parker is not in market, she's still keeping me on my toes. She's still commanding the attention of like journalists, media members, the team.
Cool.
So of course, you go into practice and the players didn't know. They're not on their phones in practice. So I obviously wanted to get the reaction from the rookies because that these are players who watch these vets and again, like you said, emulated their game after. Angel specifically gave a huge shout out to Candace. She said how, she contemplated taking number 3 because she wasn't going to be number 10. Kamilla Cardoso has number 10 for the Sky. And then she thought, I can't take that jersey because Candace's jersey is going to be retired soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, you're talking to Dana Evans, who shared this just adorable, wonderful story about how Candace helped her understand the importance of credit and helped her, understand that she's gotta set that foundation for her credit. And so she could get like a big girl credit card. And so now she has an American Express credit card, and she gives that credit to Candace Parker for helping her get there. And then Diamond DeShields. Diamond's story is so freaking unique and special and interesting to me. There's so many layers to it. One of them being she was drafted in 2018 to be a foundational piece to a championship. She goes through all these hurdles, one of them being a tumor that changed the trajectory of her career. Then you have players come in to this team that again was always supposed to be yours, and your role changes, your role shifts, your mentality has to shift. And so Candace again came in and led the Sky to a title, but she never did it in a way that was like, this is my team and you all have to listen to me. But it was like her presence commands that naturally. Her advice, her direction, all of these things, her leadership commands that respect naturally. And so the dynamic between or the reflection from Diamond on Candace's retirement was so special because she talked about like, I didn't realize maybe in the moment the weight of being in Candace's role as that veteran, as that star, as that leader that we needed. And now looking back, I can see like how challenging that role really was. And I have so much respect and admiration for her. She was like, she said, if I could tell her anything, I would say job well done. And so again, these are things that maybe in 2021, it was challenging for Diamond to be in this situation where the team is shifting around her. But now in hindsight, she's like, all the flowers, all the flowers. So it was a special moment. And I was glad that it happened and at training camp so you could get the immediate reaction.
Just love that you got all this and cannot wait to read again. Check it out in the Chicago Sun-Times coming up this weekend. Read everything Annie does. You will never be sorry. But also, I mean, how amazing for you to give me that segue, because in segment 2 coming up, we're going to talk about Diamond and the 2024 Sky.
Yeah.
And also, again, a Pros Pro, even as a guest. We will be back in segment 2 in just a minute with more Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm Howard Megdal. But first, excited to talk to you guys about DoorDash. And DoorDash has some Mother's Day options for you. You want to make mom smile? You can start Mother's Day with flowers, surprise her with gifts from brands she loves, anything you want. Go check out the varied options you have, food and beyond. You got tech, gift cards, self-care treats, all over at DoorDash. There's a deal right now that you can get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on the next flowers, convenience store, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. Just use the podcast code Locked On NBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order over at DoorDash. Don't panic about Mother's Day. This is what you do. Locked On Women's Basketball is also brought to you by FanDuel. And Annie, you're in Chicago, so you know this. Some of our listeners may not, but we are between women's basketball, the end of the college season. WNBA doesn't start until May 14th. There is a men's league that I have been reading about where men play basketball called, hold on, I have the notes here, the NBA. Is that correct? Is that right?
I've heard about it. I've heard about it. But it's not, in my opinion, maybe garnering as much attention in my mind as this league that we cover, the WNBA. But yeah, I've heard of it.
It's not fair. Men should have the right to do this as well, right? I mean, the world's just slanted against them, but okay, fine. So there is an NBA. I hear the playoffs are happening. Must be very exciting for the Bulls.
Oh my God. You think it should be. You'd hope it would be as a fan, right? But no, it has not been too exciting here in Chicago, Chicago Bulls. I know, obviously, jokes aside, I spent some time covering the NBA during the W off season. I slum it a bit, Right. NBA, again, jokes aside. So anybody listening, please don't take this too serious. But yeah, I think the Bulls are in a position where fans are anxious for some change. And
so let me ask you this, though. The NHL playoffs are still happening too, right? So at least you have the Blackhawks doing real well, right? They don't. Okay, well, here's what I'll say is this. FanDuel has an opportunity to bet on all the NBA playoffs, all the NHL playoffs. The only thing FanDuel can't do is turn Chicago's men's sports franchises into winners. But new customers, win or lose, I mean, the Blackhawks and Bulls should love this, can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Again, that's $150 to spend on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Just one $5 winning bet. So visit FanDuel.com/locked on, and you can make every playoff shot count between now and May 14th. And then, of course, back to the WNBA. FanDuel has WNBA lines as well. But in the meantime, here is a way to spend your time with FanDuel. Yeah, the NBA. It's something to look into. So
So funny. I didn't know you were doing like a hit. I was like, oh, are we going to talk about the Bulls? I'll talk about the Bulls.
no, we're not going to talk
I was
about
like, wait, this is going in an interesting direction.
both for reasons of the fact that there's so much for us to get to with the Sky, and also there ain't much to talk about with the Bulls these days for sure.
No.
But here's what there is a lot to talk about, and that is Diamond DeShields, who is so deeply compelling to me. And so just, to give our listeners a bit of background, I have covered her dating back to her collegiate days. I have seen somebody who has limitless talent. You spoke about this a lot in segment one, that she has been through challenges that no one can imagine. And it's interesting. I see externally through social media as well, Diamond seems to feel like she's been counted out in a lot of ways. And I can see both sides of that and understand that for people to not necessarily know what she can be going forward is a perfectly reasonable thing, because her career arc is like none other. But on the other side of it, to assume that she is something less than a potential star in this league is hard for me to fathom, because we both know what kind of talent she has. So just take me through what you're seeing out of her so far.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing right now, I wrote about this. I think the story ran Sunday. Sorry, I'm like losing my mind in terms of like days of the week, from our text exchange. But I think the biggest thing I'm seeing from Diamond right now is a sense of calm and relief. Like, she's just seems comfortable. She seems really happy. She seems excited. And she also seems ready for this leadership role. Her career might look different, but she still has the mind of like a superstar. And I think that's the challenge, right? Is no matter whether it's retirement, whether it's injury, whatever it is, if you're one of those players, right? Your mind is that of that type of player forever. And the acceptance that has to come with changes that your career experiences is the hurdle, one of the hurdles. And so I think seeing Diamond in practice, just in the few practices that we've been able to view, the Sky were off yesterday. It's noticeable that she's talking with the young players. She's talking with her peers. She's, you could see her kind of like inserting her thoughts on like whatever's going on with the team. So I think the biggest thing that I'm noticing from Diamond is just a level of comfort and ease, it seems. And then as far as her game goes, I think that's going to take time to really put too much emphasis or provide too much of an assessment on where things stand with her. As we know, she's coming off a year of not playing. It was suggested that she have surgery. She didn't go that route. She moved back to Atlanta, where she's from, the Atlanta area, and worked with trainers and specialists that she's trusts and knows, and got her body back right. And so now it's just about putting it on the court and putting it together.
I remember how excited Amber Stocks was the night she was drafted. this level of anticipation in an extra lottery pick the Sky were able to get. We did do a whole show just on that particular trade, but it also involved Ty Young, that particular trade. And Ty Young, of course, is back in Chicago as an assistant coach. What's that been like to sort of have her voice back in the mix here for the Sky?
Yeah, Ty is like, anybody that knows Ty, I think she's such a force. She's such a presence. Like, she commands your attention and respect just the way she carries herself. So I think what's really cool to see about this Teresa Weatherspoon era and staff is that this staff is like, again, just like, you want to listen to everything they say. You're like, oh, Ty Young's talking to me. Like, I gotta like pay attention. C-Rob's talking to me. I gotta pay attention. Sydney Johnson, like all these coaches, and then of course Teresa. So, I think this staff has a lot of great qualities, a lot of experience, and I think the players the players know that. And of course, Ty is one of those players that comes with a very detailed history in this league, and the players that are suiting up for this guy know that.
I miss watching her play. I'm glad you get to
Yeah.
cover her as a coach as well. Some other key critical players. We're here for Dana Evans' discussion, and I'm always here for Dana Evans' discussion. I know you are too. So we're going to be back with that and talking a little bit about where the Sky are relative to the WNBA standard in segment 3. But first, excited to talk to you guys about Monopoly Go, one of the sponsors of today's podcast. And in Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build each other's boards. You know, a lot of times I know our family loves Monopoly, but we don't necessarily have the time to be able to devote to it. Monopoly Go solves that as well. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. You can get everything from unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for bigger prizes, cool new pieces to travel the boards with. I like the car, but you know, other people like to out. And
I like the hat.
The hat is good. You know what? The hat is good too. That is true. And then there are also emojis for taunting friends for when you smash buildings or heist their vaults. So there's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. Get off the bench and go download it now free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on, Monopoly Go. Yeah, the hat's underrated, right? To me, it's the car has propulsion, so I'm sort of feeling that. But I like the hat.
You know, I'm like a fashion girly, so I like the articles of clothing. I think a hat's great. I would love to wear a top hat. That's actually like, wow, that would be fun.
Hashtag 2024 goals. Oh, I mean, Annie, I try to dress well, and we get to the arena, and you just like your fashion sense blows me away, and I can't compete with that. So
I clearly am like in my fashion bag right now. I mean, this is one of my favorite sweatshirts ever. I stole it from my aunt. She still brings it up. She's like, you know, I was never going to say anything, but you know whose sweatshirt that is. I'm like, I know. I've had it since I was like a kid, a sleepover at her house. Anyways, I just love
the White Sox this year, right? I mean, they're or are they what 3-22 right now?
Yeah, whopping. No, I think they're now at like 5-22. I think they won, or maybe no, even 6 because they swept this last series. So they're making moves. I will say,
my 62 Mets to shame.
Yeah, I will say the Sox. Like my dad was a huge Sox fan, and so I've never covered baseball in my career. It's just not my my sport, and so it is the one team that I've always been like a loyal fan of and will be for my life.
Well, you deserve better than the White Sox have given you so far. Hopefully,
we'll figure it out.
Hopefully they will figure it out. I hope so for your sake. But so to this Sky team, and again, we mentioned just before the break about Dana Evans, and you've written so well about her through the years, and she's in a critical point right now for this team. What does she need to be for the Sky to reach their ceiling? And I just related to that. I'm curious what you think the ceiling of this team is.
So this is such an interesting question, the ceiling part, right? Because this is only a 12-team league, right? So if 8 teams make the playoffs, you can be a pretty mediocre to bad team and still make the playoffs. Like, you know, it's not unfathomable to think that the Sky could be number 8. We saw them, you know, squeeze their way in last year, and it was important that they do so, because if they didn't, they would have sent a lottery pick to the Dallas Wings. So again, they're in a similar position this year. They have the pick swap with Dallas, right? Yeah, Dallas. And so it's really their ceiling, I think, could be the playoffs. But beyond that, it's imperative that they make the playoffs so that they don't send that pick to the Wings.
And don't they open against the Wings?
Yeah. Yeah.
Storylines
are storylining. We love it. So I think again, it's so interesting because like this isn't a team even that the team is still together and it's just a new coach. It's like it's an entirely new team and an entirely new coaching staff. And then you've got 2 new rookies. The Sky really haven't had to implement rookies into their schemes in years. And so it's like there's so many questions around this team. So to even speculate about what their ceiling is at this point, I think would be kind of moronic. I do think, you know, the cliches that we're kind of hearing about like the mentality of this team and the mentality of these players, it is not just cliche, you know, starting with Dana Evans. This is a player who has not really gotten a solid chance to show what she can do in this league yet. Obviously, rightfully so. She was playing behind Courtney Vandersloot, and then Julie Alleman comes in. And then last year was kind of the biggest opportunity to see who Dana is. And I think Dana really has the potential to be a star two-way guard in this league. We've seen the way that she can shoot the ball, and then the mentality and approach she takes to the defensive side of the ball. It's like she really can be a force in that respect. And Teresa knows that. Teresa's known that since she's taken the job. During her intro press conference, you know, following that intro press conference when she did, you know, her one-off interviews with all of us reporters in Chicago, that's something she told me was Dana has the potential to be a deep on the all defensive player list. Like she could be a top defender in this league. And again, coming from a guard who has that history herself, Teresa knows how to get that out of her. And I think something that's interesting when you're talking about kind of the evolution of players in this league and who could be a franchise player or who could be a star. I always look at players' mentality. Like even if they are not getting the opportunity yet, I'm always like subtly paying attention to how they're carrying themselves or how they're approaching the game, even when they're not in it. It's something that's been so special to me watching Dana that indicates she has it, are the intangibles, are the way that she's approached it, even when she kept getting told, hold on, you got to wait. It's still not your turn. It's still not your turn. She just has always had that approach. So now this year it's going to be about taking it and applying it. And I think it's going to be exciting to watch how she does.
I can't wait. And, you know, again, to your point, she's made no secret of the fact that she wants to play more,
Right.
but she's also approached it in such a professional way. My favorite stat out of Dana Evans from last year, finally saw her get north of 20 minutes a game. But if you go and look at her splits over at Basketball Reference, when she plays 10 to 19 minutes last year, she shot 25.5% from the field. When she played 20 to 29, that jumps to 39.7. And she had 3 games where she played north of 30 minutes, and she shot 46.3% from the field, made more than half of her threes. When she gets more of these opportunities, you see her playing more and playing better. It's fascinating for me to see. We would be remiss, of course, not to talk about. There are a couple of under-the-radar rookies that the Sky drafted in this most recent draft. A lot of people didn't really hear about them. Their college programs are very undercovered. It was South Carolina and Louisiana.
What was that other one?
LSU, I think. And in Kamilla Cardoso and Angel Reese. I mean, joking aside, like it's how vital is it, has it been so far that Kamilla and Angel come in with having already had the spotlight and being in programs that have produced so many pro players? Do you see it right away in the way they carry themselves?
Oh, right away, dude. Right away. Oh, the way that they walk like up to the media, even they're like, you guys got, it's like they're literally, there's no hesitation or nerves or like it's just like seamless. They're so ready. They're so freaking ready for the spotlight.
What are you seeing from them on the court so far? The idea in both of these cases, to my mind, is these were pro-ready bodies with some skills that would obviously translate. Certainly, that's very different from saying, oh, they're going to be in prime, ready to do it from day one. I'm just wondering how they look in that mix right away against, pros, against veterans.
Yeah, it's so early. I feel like I keep saying this like
No, I
over
know.
and over again.
Yeah, I don't
It's
need to put you
hard.
on the spot. Predict the future, Annie. We
I
must know the
know.
future. No, but what are you seeing so far? With the understand
Yeah.
small sample size. Yes.
You guys can hear it in my voice. I hate being wrong, so I'm always like hesitant to say anything. But yeah, I think what stood out to me about both Angel and Kamilla is their approach that they've already taken to their less than a week of practice. They've been working with Teresa Weatherspoon in the morning before practice, which Angel said has been, a change for her. She said the other day, she's not used to being like already having a full on sweat going by the time practice starts. So that's been I think great for them and will continue to be great for them because, as you said, pro ready bodies, but there are aspects of their game that need to develop. I think Kamilla is interesting because I think, again, this is just in my mind, but like given the forwards, the front court players that the Sky have, I think you can see a world in which Camilla's like in the mix right off the bat, like in maybe even in the starting five. I know, again, like that's just speculation, but you can see that as a possibility. But when it comes to Angel, I think she needs to develop more of that kind of positionless style of play. Shout out to Candace Parker. Because Kamilla, and I talked to Dawn Staley about this too, we're seeing this evolution of the game where it is becoming more positionless. So when you have a player like Kamilla, who is more of like that true center, 6'7", how does that work? Like, is there a need to change her game? Like, is it not great to be that style of a big? And the thing she said, and this might be obvious to all like the basketball minds, but to me it was like, a great point, is just that when you're playing against a player like Kamilla, you have to game plan for her or she will bury you. Like if you think that she needs to be positionless and you think you don't have to worry about her, joke's on you. Like, so
in a lot of ways, I feel like Tierra McCowan and her development can serve as a useful reminder that here, even in 2024, there is a spot for a legit dominant five. It will be fascinating to see it.
Or Brittany Griner, like Dawn brought up
Right.
Brittany. It's
Correct.
right, Brittany really like buries teams. So
True. Although diversified her game too, and her mid range is
totally.
Yeah.
And that could be an example to Kamilla. Over time, she can diversify her game. And we saw she can shoot a three. She can
that is right. And in pressure when it matters. So it's fascinating to see ahead. If you are listening instead of just watching, at Annie, ANNIE COSTABILE, follow Annie everywhere you can. Read her in the Sun Times. And Annie, we're out of time, but I can't wait to have you back to talk about everything you're doing again. Just remarkable. To our listeners, thank you so much for being with us as you are every day. We'll be back tomorrow with an upgrade in the host chair. Gigi Spear will be hosting. Until then, I'm Howard Megdal, wishing all of you a wonderful Wednesday.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.